But first of all, we're going to talk about a big Sun investigation. Our colleagues over at the Sun talking about raking it in two ends. The hotels have been likened to all-inclusive resorts for offering entertainers, fitness classes, guitar lessons, fresh meals. This is one particular firm, Stay Belvedere Hotels, which runs 51 UK sites. And they've been raking in £700 million a year, £5.5 million a week of your money, of taxpayers' money, providing rooms for asylum seekers. 38,000 people housed at 210 sites. The Conservatives' Home Secretary, Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp says the taxpayers picking up the bill for Labour's loss of control of our borders. Labour itself says the Tories let the accommodation system spiral out of control, with 400 hotels costing £8 million a day at its peak. Well, William Yarwood is a spokesman for the Taxpayers Alliance. William, what do you make of this? It's just, I mean, must be so many people like me completely baffled and annoyed by this.
Yeah, completely, Peter. I mean, the number is quite staggering, especially considering how ordinary taxpayers are being squeezed under a record high tax burden, their energy bills going up, and the various problems they've had to deal with over the last few years since the COVID pandemic. I mean, it's more specifically on this story. I mean, it is slightly surprising to some people, but actually most of us shouldn't be too surprised at all, because this stuff has been going on for quite a while now. Actually, there's an interesting element where there's a local council element in here as well, where local councils have actually been handing over cash to illegal migrant hotels and illegal migrants directly to fund their PlayStations, DJ lessons, driving lessons and so on and so forth.
Are local councils honestly giving asylum seekers direct funding so they can buy PlayStations? Is that actually happening?
Yeah, so there was about, I think it was a Telegraph revealed there was about £400 given to an illegal migrant hotel and a local authority, which was then spent specifically on video games and PlayStations. There was bankrupt Croydon Council. Bankrupt Croydon Council, Peter, which has gone bankrupt 3 times. They've given out 3 Section 114 notices. They spent around £317,000 on extracurricular activities for illegal migrants, including, yes, as I mentioned earlier, DJ lessons. So local taxpayers and taxpayers more broadly across the nation will be wondering what on earth is actually going on with their money and why on earth it's going towards people who shouldn't be here in the first place.
It's a very fair question, especially as local elections are coming up next week. I mean, the processing is clearly the big issue here, getting these people assessed, and then if they are not legally in this country, actually sending them back. The processing seems to be the big issue, but of course the draws are still there, and will be very soon, I'm sure, up to 10,000 people coming across illegally on boats this year. That's going to happen very, very soon, I would imagine.
Yeah, completely. I mean, we had a record number of boat crossings just the other week with, I think, over 9,000 in one day, which was a record number. And also within the first 3 months of Labour being in power, actually, like the amount of people in illegal migrant hotels actually went up by about 20%. We don't know the actual stats for the last recent months, but I'm sure it's just as high. Labour basically...
It's over 9,000 anyway. We'll see if we can get the exact statistics, but it's certainly over 9,000 people in the last number of months, and it's going to go up. It's going to be over 10,000 very soon, I'm sure, William.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the issue, as you mentioned here, that actually isn't talked about all that much is the incentive element to it. I think Labour talk a lot about crushing the gangs and smashing the gangs, which doesn't actually really mean anything. But actually what they need to deal with is the incentives of why these people are coming to the United Kingdom over other countries. And quite frankly, Peter, I think it's because we're actually a bit of a soft touch, not just in regards to welfare, social housing, just the benefits of living in Britain more generally, but because we have a political establishment which, says one thing about this issue, but in reality does another. I know the last Conservative government talked very tough about illegal migration, but in reality dealt with the issue in a very poor way, and the Labour is doing basically the same thing at the moment, which is obviously a shame, Peter.
Although, in fairness to the Conservatives, even though I think it was unworkable, even though I think it was massively expensive, and I don't think it was ever actually going to happen, the Rwanda plan was some level of disincentive. It was some deterrent, and I don't see the deterrent. I've spoken to senior people in the Labour Party about this, and I've said, both on air and off air, and I've said, where is the deterrent? Where is the deterrent? There is no deterrent, and these people will continue to come across illegally in boats, taking risks to themselves, risks to their children. Some of them die. I don't want anybody to die, but I also don't want anybody coming across in a boat. What are you trying to do to deter them? And I don't see any deterrent.
Yeah, quite exactly. Labour got rid of Rwanda, I think, on day one of them being in power.
Right.
And as you're correct, the Rwanda plan had a lot of, elements to it. Was it a good use of money? Were any migrants really, sent there? The answer to both of those is likely no. But there's absolutely no deterrent. So if I may, Peter, I'll propose one deterrent, namely to do with the countries that a lot of these people are coming from, places like Albania, places like Pakistan. Why on earth are we giving foreign aid to those countries when the people in those countries are, going on boats, crossing Europe to get into our country? What we should be doing is saying to those countries, hey, we have people from your country trying to illegally enter our country. If you don't take these people back as soon as possible, we're going to cut off all your foreign aid immediately until you take these people back. I think that's quite a good deterrent and quite a good stick to wield on the world stage. But I don't think our political leaders have the spine to do that, quite frankly.
William, interesting thoughts there. William Yarwood, who's a spokesman for the Taxpayers Alliance. Thank you.